Hey guys, E10 here from SunBros, and today I am really excited to be bringing you guys yet another how to build video. We're going to be covering Aleister, the new mage. Alright guys, so as always we're going to be starting in the hero page so we can figure out what makes Aleister tick, what makes him who he is, and to best figure out how to build him to take advantage of his strengths while limiting his weaknesses. Now before we get started, if you guys enjoy the content, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and of course check out our other content like our top 5s and our Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday night live streams. Alright, so as you guys can see here, even though Aleister is listed as a class mage, his role is control, and what he really excels at is crowd controlling, and which is one of the reasons why instead of taking a mage, we're actually going to be building him and taking him as a support, because that's really more what his skill set lends itself to, rather than taking itself mage, and we're going to show you that right now. We can plot every time Aleister, every third ability or auto attack from, every ability of Aleister's and every third normal attack applies one curse stack on the enemy. At 3 curses, it explodes, dealing true damage. His first ability, Magic Barrier, is simply like a rectangular line on the ground of lightning, and whenever somebody walks into it, they get stunned, and if they walk out and they walk back in, they get stunned twice. It actually is pretty nice. Does some nice damage. Second ability, Matrix of Woe, is an AoE circle of damage that people do when they're that the enemies take when they're inside that circle. And last but not least is his ultimate, Magic Prison. Aleister traps an enemy hero in a lightning prison for 2.5 seconds, and it deals damage repeatedly over and over and over again, and stuns them over and over again. So they get stuck in this little lightning prison that deals damage and stuns them repeatedly. And it's got to be channeled. He can't walk or do any other abilities while it's happening. But it's a really strong ability. So as you guys can see, his toolkit is really built around the idea of crowd control, and that's one of the things that makes him more of a support than a mage. His damage is really not great. If you guys want to play him mid, you're more than welcome to do that, but make sure that you have plenty of damage elsewhere on the team, because if you take him as one of your main damage dealers, your team will lack damage, even though it'll have a pretty good amount of crowd control. I will also give you guys the build at the end for taking him mage. But again, the one we're going to be building today is going to be for a support role, and then we'll just give you real quick at the end a mage build. Alright, so let's go ahead and start building him out. The first thing to know about Aleister is that his abilities is everything. His entire kit is built around his abilities and the ability to do those exact things. And so he goes through mana really quickly. It's a big issue on him, and so we're going to give him some mana regen to be able to get him sustained, not just early game, but in the entire game. So Virtue's Necklace is going to be our first item here. 140 ability power. It's going to give us 20% cooldown reduction, which is great because obviously his abilities, we're going to want to spam them as much as we can. Max mana and mana for 5 seconds, and of course, mana 20% mana every time we get a kill or an assist. So his mana sustain will be really good all game long because of this. And then we're going to go boots next. We're actually going to take flashy boots because I want to ensure that we can get all 40% cooldown reduction as fast as we can, and this is one of the really good ways to ensure that. Now, a lot of people have been taking the next item on some builds with him, which is the Aegis. 20% cooldown reduction, so we actually wouldn't need flashy boots. But here's the deal, right? The passive goes off every time somebody attacks him. We don't really need... Aleister plays real far back in the back line doing his supporting crowd controlling things. So while we do want to build him tanky to make sure that he can do those supporting things as long as possible, taking damage is not a really solid part of Aleister's kit. It's not what we want to do with him. So the passive doesn't really help us a lot. Even though we get 20% cooldown reduction and some max mana, what we're going to do instead is we're going to make him tankier by switching that item to Shield of the Lost. We get an extra 1200 HP, which we didn't have, and then while the Aegis gave you a 30% cooldown or 30% attack speed debuff to the enemy, as well as a movement speed debuff to anyone attacking you, this one just does the Shield of the Lost just does the attack speed portion, which is what we want. Even though it doesn't do a slow, you gotta keep in mind his entire kit is built upon slows and stuns, so he doesn't really need to have the slow portion on there. It doesn't really help him any. Whereas this means that more people are going to actually have their attack speed reduced, and it's gonna be better for team fights overall. Now, to compensate to get our cooldown reduction up to where we want it, we're going back to the magic side. We're going to give him a little bit more damage, a little more ability power, but we're going to keep him tanky. And the way we're going to do that is by getting Barris Agony. Now, while we do get the 10% cooldown reduction, which puts us at 40, we get the armor and the ability power. Here's one of the really neat things about this item on Aleister that I think people need to know. The passive Torture deals magic damage equal to 4% of the target's current HP and the cooldown is only 1.2 seconds. And why that's important is because we're gonna save this and we're gonna go back to his hero kit real quick. His first ability, Magic Barrier, actually lays on the ground for quite a while, and you potentially could be standing in it taking damage, and you could walk out of it and walk into it. Why that's important is because we'll go through all of them. Then we have Matrix of Will, which sits on the ground for quite a while. It doesn't say the exact amount of time, but it's actually a pretty good amount of time, and they take damage continuously while they're standing in it. Now, and then we'll go lastly, the ultimate. It's channeled over 2.5 seconds. So for 2.5 seconds, they're stuck in this place, and this is why it's important. Ferris Agony has a 1.2 second cooldown on that unique passive Torture. What that means is if we ult somebody for the full 2.5 seconds, the passive should proc 3 times. Well, we're gonna get an extra 12% of their current HP as extra damage because it's gonna proc immediately, and then 1.2 seconds later it's gonna proc again, and then 1.2 seconds later, which is at the 2.4 second mark, it's gonna proc a 3rd time. So if we get somebody in there for the entire duration of it, it should proc 3 times, dealing extra damage and really being beneficial. Not to mention, the second ability is on the ground for a while, and if people are standing in that, it's going to also keep procking on those people. So, it's going to give us a pretty good amount of extra damage while continuing the tankiness and getting us maxed out at that 40% cooldown reduction. The next item we're going to go is, we're going to go back to the tanky stuff, and we're going to be getting, now this was a tough one for me to kind of choose over. And I'm going to cheat real quick and slap over here. That's right, we're going right to Buckler. That's right, we're going to Buckler. So Alistar is just, so with this build that we're building, Alistar is going to be really good at staying alive, and he's going to be near his teammates doing his crowd control stuff, going crazy, stunning everyone in sight, locking assassins and marksmen down for 2.5 seconds, and ensuring kills like a madman. Astarion's Buckler made too much sense on him. And this point at item 5 is kind of where you're getting to that point in the game where there's a ton of team fighting going on, and it's not really just 1 or 2v2 and bot laning like that. You're talking about full 5v5 team fights that a single win of a team fight could determine the win or loss portion of that game for your team. Astarion's Buckler does make him more tanky with health, HP per 5 seconds, which is always nice to have, so he has some natural regen, won't always have to back and all that stuff. And then of course the passive war cry, which increases the damage dealt, so the damage that you're going to do to people by 5%, and reduces the damage that you're going to take by 10%. So it's going to help everyone on your team do better while continuing on to the tankiness of the build that we're making for Alistar to make him really tanky. Next and last, and you guys probably got a sneak peek when I peeked over at my finished build of it, we're going to go Crimson Banner. Crimson Banner is going to give us 200 more armor, 1,500 more max HP, and it's going to do what we really want for Alistar, which is to keep him alive during a team fight with a passive Bloody Battle. It restores 20% of your HP every 5 seconds after earning a kill or assist. Now, obviously, Alistar will be much more likely to earn an assist, but every time Alistar earns an assist, he'll just be getting health back. He has, and remember, it's 20% of your HP. Now, we've got health built into the first item, 1,200. We got health built into Buckler, 1,000, and we got 1,500 here. So we actually have a good amount of health that we got built into this build, and he'll be sustaining very well during team fights, and of course, he'll be regenerating every time he gets an assist. It's a very tanky build, but it gives enough ability power to really make a difference, and not so he's not putting out 0 damage, but even if we build him full damage, it doesn't really give you the amount of damage that you're going to want as a mage. And if you're playing as a support who does mage abilities like Alice or Pura, or obviously Alistar, you're going to want to go more tanky, because the goal for you as a support isn't to do damage and get kills. It's obviously to stay alive and do what you do best, which is crowd controlling and screwing up all the enemy's plans. So this is the build that we're going to go for him as a supporty tank. So it's kind of like an off-tank build is what I'd call it. For support magic dealers like him, I like to go off-tank. I also like that with Chagnar, Alice, Pura, all of them. Then we're going to be looking at ability build number 1. Now this is the full mid build. I'm going to give you a quick explanation of it and a quick rundown before we end the video. The mana necessity is still there, so we're getting 20% cooldown reduction. We're getting the mana regen. We still need that. We're getting Gilded Graves this time, because spamming his abilities and his crowd control is still important. It's just not quite as important as it was as a support, because your job is really to help your ADC get fed and all that stuff. We're still going to get to 40. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Additionally, because you are squishy, this removes 35% of crowd control from you via the passive resistance. And then, again, Varus Agony, we already explained that. We're still taking that mid lane because I think the extra damage is worth it. And again, you're squishy mage, so a little bit of extra damage or crowd or tankiness is going to help you just stay alive and be able to do more of that damage and more of that crowd control. Because even though you're playing mage and you're going to be doing a lot more damage, your main role is still doing crowd control. So the longer you can live, the longer you can do crowd control and damage, the better and more effective you're going to be for your team. Then we're going to Kate's Diadem, which is obviously going to give us a big old boost in damage overall. Next, we're going Rhea's Blessing, and the reason we're going Rhea's Blessing is because it gives us our 40% cooldown reduction, and that shield, again, I just don't want to die as Alistar. I want to stay alive as long as I can so I can spam his abilities and do what he does best. And of course, the magic lifesteal does help a little bit. And last but not least, we're going Holy of Holies, which not only exponentially increases that damage, it also gives us the maximum HP, which of course is going to help us make us even more tanky. So this is kind of I would call this a really light hybrid build. It's a little bit tanky. You get a shield, you get some armor, you get some magic resist, you get resistance to crowd control, you get some health. But what you really get is a good amount of damage to go along with it. And this is our middle build for Alistar. I'm going to give you guys one more sneak peek at our hybrid off-tank support build for Alistar. These are the two builds that I am going with Alistar, and I have seen them in action, and they do work very well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and as always, until next time.